For this build, you're going to need a willing githyanki. Lae'zel is modeling for us here. I would propose that you do use your own tav. Using the hireling means you can't use one of the aspects that makes this build just that little bit better. So we're going with a fighter. Lae'zel's a natural class anyway. For the fighting style, we're going to go for defense. You could pick great weapon fighting actually, that would work okay. But Lae'zel is lacking in armor class a little bit. And we're going to make up for great weapon fighting later too. As for the abilities, we're going to max out strength and dexterity. This is so we've got a good hit chance, better damage from the strength, and we want the highest dexterity possible to get the highest initiative possible. We also need some constitution, and out of the mental stats, wisdom tends to be the one you want to favor the most for the saving throws. As we level up, we're going to pick Eldritch Knight at level 3, and the absolutely essential thing for this build is Booming Blade. This is to get out a bit of extra damage on the first attack per turn and to use the Eldritch Knight's Warcasting ability. The other cantrip that you pick honestly is really up to you. I'm not going to show off any of them in this video. For outside combat, maybe friends. It's not so bad. If you use it, you can run away. Anyway, you choose what you like. As for the spells, for the level 1 spells, the only really essential one is Shield. I'm not going to use the others. Magic Missile might be fine for just finishing off a few enemies, so I do tend to like that. As for the expanded spell list, one of the options you might have a look at is Expeditious Retreat for concentration spell. However, we are going to be using our bonus action pretty much every round. I'm going to pick Chromatic Orb just so I could create a surface if I want to. It's not going to come up in this video. At level 4, I would go with either Great Weapon Master or the Ability Score Improvement. Then at level 6, do the one you didn't do, so I'm going to go for the Ability Score Improvement for Strength. I know it's an odd number, bear with me. So here's the level 7 ability. Sorry, I called it Warcasting earlier, it's War Magic. I do apologise. It's so good. After you cast a cantrip, you can make a weapon attack using a bonus action. Well, guess what cantrip we're going to be using? Put the spells here. Again, there's nothing that important for this build, so pick whatever you want. The one spell I would really strongly suggest for level 2 is Magic Weapon. This is because we do want to have a spell we're concentrating on for the whole long rest if possible, so we only have to use one spell slot. Many, if not all of the other concentration spells here are for a limited time only, so we don't get the bonus that we want. At level 8, I'd pick up Savage Attacker. This is why I said Great Weapon Fighting isn't essential, but there's no real harm in having both. The cantrip at level 10 is completely up to you. Maybe Blade Ward for something defensive. I'm not going to use it. Again, for the spells, none of these are essential. Darkness is fine. Maybe you want to switch out Scorching Ray and maybe pick up Blur for a defensive spell just in case. At level 11 we get our extra attack. I'm just going to pick a random spell here. I'm only going to use like 2 spells anyway. I'm going to pick Alert for the final feat because we're not going to be wearing many items that give a bonus to initiative. So this is where we're going to get our big bump in initiative from. And so we see Lae'zel's strength is 22. Hang on a second, you might say. Hang on a second, CVG. It only said 19 on the character level up screen. Well, that's because in this playthrough I gave Lae'zel Auntie Ethel's hair, which was strength +1, and the potion of everlasting vigor from Uraj Oblodra in Act 2. And when you use that potion, your maximum strength goes up to 22. So when it comes to items, most of these are set in stone, to be honest. You could play around with a few though. Starting from the top, the Helm of Baldur. This is to give her a bit of healing, which will link up with the necklace. Bonus points to those of you who can guess the necklace ahead of time. This also gives us a +1 bonus to our armor class and saving throws. We can't be stunned and we can't have critical hits land on us. This is really a defensive helmet. For the cloak, we've got the Cloak of Protection. Again, for the armor class and saving throw. There is a downside to this build and we have to try and limit that if we can. One thing I'm avoiding with my build here is using the bhaalist armor, because if you go online, look at the top damage builds, honestly they're all about the bhaalist armor, and for good reason. It's amazing. It gives enemies vulnerability to piercing damage, so you go for a piercing weapon. I want to avoid that. I want to choose something a bit different. I have shown this armor off in a few other videos. What I like about it is that it gives a +2 bonus to initiative rolls and saving throws. This is the only piece of equipment that's given me a bonus to initiative, but it really does help top it up. We have resistance to fire damage. That doesn't really matter too much. It's helpful, but it doesn't come into play very much. And if you want to cast this ahead of combat, you could Fire Shield Warm. I would not cast it during combat. It's a waste of our action. The main downside is the armor class is 16, which is alright for medium armor, but we're only going to get a maximum of +2 from that from our dexterity. Anyway, moving along to the Hell Dusk Glove. We gain a +1 bonus to spell attack rolls and spell save DC. You know what? We're not really going to use that. What we've picked this for is the extra 1d6 fire damage. Before these gloves, I would recommend the flawed Hell Dusk Gloves, which give you a 1d4 bonus to fire damage with your weapon. Since we've picked a githyanki, we do get a bonus from using the Boots of Sonic Movement. So when a githyanki casts Fly, which uses a bonus action, does not require concentration, the next melee attack deals an additional 1d4 psychic damage, which by itself isn't much, but we are going to be stacking that up. For example, we are also using the Silver Sword of the Astral Plane. And before you pick this up in Act 3, I would definitely use the Soulbreaker Greatsword, which comes from Act 2. Anyway, this is a nice weapon. It's a +3 weapon, and when wielded by a githyanki, this weapon deals an additional 1d6 psychic damage. And githyanki holding this weapon has advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, is resistant to psychic damage, and cannot be charmed. This is going to be fairly important. Up to the necklace. So bonus points to those of you who said, oh, you're going to pick the Broodmother's Revenge because when the wearer is healed, the weapon becomes coated in magic and deals an additional 1d6 poison damage. Well, guess what? We're being healed every single turn. So we're going to deal an additional 1d6 poison damage. The risky ring is to offset pretty much the penalty from Great Weapon Masters. So this gives us advantage on our attack rolls, but we receive disadvantage on saving throws, which is why I've tried to stack a few things, the helmet, the cloak, and the armor, that give us a bonus to saving throws. So a +4 bonus doesn't really offset exactly the disadvantage, but it's not far off. So our minimum saving throw, thankfully there aren't too many spells and abilities that target intelligence and charisma, which is why I recommended putting wisdom up to 10. We've got the Strange Conduit Ring. This is why we want to concentrate on something all the time, so we get an extra 1d4 psychic damage. Now, on top of all this, hopefully you've also picked up the Resonance Stone, because that gives anyone nearby vulnerability to psychic damage. So we got psychic damage coming from the ring, from the weapon, and once per long rest, we're having psychic damage from the boots. Now, once you've used these boots, I would recommend switching over to the Boots of Elemental Momentum, because whenever you deal, well, thunder damage really is what it is. With the cantrip, you gain momentum for 2 turns, so we increase our movement speed, which helps them move around. For the ranged weapon, I'm just holding the dead shot just to reduce the number needed for a critical hit by 1. This isn't exactly a critical hit build, but we're not going to be attacking with the ranged weapon, so this is just what I would call a stat stick, something you just want the bonus from the weapon rather than the damage or anything. An alternative is Gontra Mail, I don't know how to pronounce this, because you can cast Celestial Haste once per long rest. The lovely thing about this is you don't become lethargic when this haste runs out. Alright, to increase the damage of our weapon just that little bit further, we're going to drop our weapon on the floor. I've shown this many times now. And you're going to pick one of these elements to add to your weapon. The one that you pick doesn't matter too much. I would pick either cold or lightning because it's very easy to make enemies vulnerable to these 2 types of damage. I'm going to go with cold. Let's equip that. So now we've got an extra 1d4 there. You're also going to take a couple of elixirs per day. You're going to start off with the Supreme Elixir of Arcane Cultivation because this gives her a level 4 spell slot. Now, why would you do that? Well, magic weapon can be upcast. When you do that, it's not a massive bonus, but we're getting every little bit that we can get. We're getting every little advantage we can get here. The weapon becomes magical, receiving a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls. I'm honestly almost looking more for the +2 bonus to attack. +2 bonus to damage rolls means if we've got 4 attacks, an extra 8 damage per turn spread out across 4 attacks isn't really very much. Anyway, we're going to cast this. I'm not sure why that didn't use my level 4 spell slot. It did when I was testing this. Anyway, we've now got an extra 1d4 psychic damage added on because of the Strange Conduit Ring. Then you're going to take another elixir. The top pick is the Elixir of Bloodlust. There's no reason why this wouldn't be the top pick. You get an extra attack action and you can deal an extra weapon's worth of damage, which is really a good amount of damage. Other options would be the Elixir of the Colossus to give you an extra 1d4 damage per attack, plus some other small benefits. Maybe the Elixir of Viciousness if that's all you've got hanging around. So the number you need to roll a critical hit becomes an 18 instead of a 19 when combined with the bow. I'm going to go with an Elixir of Bloodlust because I think it's quite clearly the best because we get an extra attack basically per round. Maybe you could use the Elixir of Cloud Giant Strength. You're not going to gain many stats from that. Maybe Dexterity goes up to 18, then you maximize your Wisdom or maybe Intelligence. But I'm going to stick with this. Notice that once we use the Elixir of Bloodlust, the level 4 spell slot disappeared also. To get the most out of this build, you will need to persuade Lae'zel if you're using Lae'zel. So have you thought about making use of the Tadpole's power? She'll need a bit of persuasion. Doesn't stop there though. We need another persuasion
I
check.
have no need of this depraved power.
You need these talents. There we are.
You might be right.
All right. Thank you, Lazel. So now we're going to pick up the only two you really need. It's favorable beginnings to make sure your first hit against an enemy hits. I say make sure, massively increases the chances. And luck of the Fire Realms for when you need that critical hit. Those two are not essential, but they're always going to be good. Alright, so if you know you're about to get into a fight, and I know I'm about to get into a fight here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Githborn Flying Boots. I may as well use the Fouled Shield Warm as once per long rest. Going to use this. And do you know what? I'm also going to dip my weapon in fire. Because why shouldn't I have every advantage that I can get? So we get into a fight. We've been healed, so now we have dips in poison applied to the sword. And of course I got rid of the dips in fire. Right, let's show this off. Let's use fly. This is granted by the boots. We get flying strike, which has an extra 1d4. Though it doesn't say it on the attack roll there. Now you must open up with Booming Blade. I've found if your first attack isn't Booming Blade, we don't get to use our bonus action for another weapon attack. So I'm going to use Booming Blade first. I'm not going to use this because I've got a dead wolf. So we can see here the Great Weapon Master plus the Strength modifier plus a +5. That's because it's a +3 weapon plus also a +2 weapon because I use magic weapon. The psychic damage did a lot of heavy lifting as well because we only dealt 12 psychic damage. But it gets doubled because they are vulnerable. Look, we got flying strike. Now what you can do is fly again. You get flying strike again. Can we deal another 75 damage? Let's find out. Not quite. And the difference here is we didn't and don't get to use Booming Blade. We can only do that once per action. Oh, it's a critical hit anyway. Boom. So down here, we're getting some slightly nicer numbers here now. So we've got 40, 50, 78, 86, 91 damage. That's okay. So I'm going to use my... Ooh, I can't quite reach over there, so why not? Let's kill a bat. And you'll notice that attack there, use my bonus action before using the action from the Elixir of Bloodlust. And now that I've got that action from the Elixir of Bloodlust, I have Booming Blade available. But sadly, I'm not within range. It's not... I don't quite have enough movement. I probably should have had Long Strider. Oh well. In this situation, we're just short. I'd probably use the Razor Fire. It's going to be pretty good in this fight anyway, because I've got lots and lots of low-level enemies to kill. Can't quite reach over there, so we'll try this one. So opening up with Booming Blade, this is a must. Didn't quite kill them. If I move away from them, they're going to die when they move next turn anyway. When dealing with lots of enemies, I would suggest a cleave. Now I've only got one cleave per short rest, but I've got a lot of enemies to kill here. I've also realized my mistake now. I should have used this fly ability when I went to attack Blaze Hewn. Let's go after Garrus Hewn. Let's get a tiny bit of extra damage. With the fire shields, do you know what? If they hit me, they might just die anyway. There's Flying Strike. Oh, critical hit. Whack. 40, 80, 90, 98, 104 damage. I've definitely seen worse in my life. So we're slicing, we're dicing. We are clearing this place out. Why not? We're a fighter after all. And why not? A critical hit with Booming Blade is the ideal thing because we've got all this extra thunder damage added. And look at that, because of Savage Attacker at a 4d8, so maximum of 32. 29 without Savage Attacker, that's so rarely going to happen. It's almost been a bit of a waste having Action Surge, but I just love showing it off. Let's take a couple of pot shots, shall we? It's gonna be fine. One. And can we see this other rat? We can't. It's fine. They'll come to us. think we'll be okay. We got this, boys.
Sword Coast's most secure bank without permission. The guards are under.
Let's try our hand against the Steel Watcher, shall we? Now, since the Githform flying boots are once per long rest, I've used it up. So I don't get that bonus anymore, which is a little bit sad. I've also got to close down the distance. So honestly, I'm going to have to jump here. So don't get the one extra attack this turn. But that's alright. Unfortunately, this enemy is immune to poison and psychic damage and resistant to fire. So we're getting most of our damage from the slashing here. But we've got an awesome weapon. We can use Soulbreaker. This one. Oh, dead. Thank you. Continue going against the Steel Watcher. Oh, that's going to die. I'm going to take on the Clash Guard here because he's going to smite me to death if I don't do something about him first. Oh, I was just hoping I'd get a critical hit. Just what I needed. Let's add this up. That's 31, 69, nice. 75, 86, 103 plus 32 is what? 135 damage. Not too shoddy. Oh, there's another one here. I've got enough attacks left. I should be able to kill them. And one more attack left. I'll use a Booming Blade. Let's use it against... doesn't really matter. Let's use it against you. And only hope they run away. This is why we picked shield. We want to maintain concentration for as long as possible. Oh, there it goes. Critical fail. This is the downside, disadvantage. I've now lost 1d4 psychic damage per turn, which is 1d4 times 2, really. And also, my hit chance has gone down by 2. It's a little bit sad. Perhaps if there were other people around in your party, maybe you want to use your action to get the 1d4 damage per attack back, but you're going to have a hard time convincing me that it's worth it. You're going to do kind of a minimal amount of damage with the ranged weapon. You know, don't have sharpshooter or anything. I don't have the best bow for damage, but it's respectable. If the opportunity attacks weren't so deadly, I would run away so they would just die from Booming Blade. But I need to make sure that they die. Like so. Oh, out of range again. Perhaps this is the sort of time you want to use Blade Ward. I know I've got a few attacks incoming. May as well reduce the amount of damage that they do. This is another downside, like my armor class 21 is like, it's okay, but for Act 3, it's not really good enough. Alright, let's just finish them off. I really should have switched over to the Boots of Elemental Momentum. I would have saved myself a lot of hassle. I suppose since it's nearly the end of combat, why not? Let's just use a Potion of Speed. That should help me finish them off. There we are. It was pointed out to me that the Eldritch Knight really did receive a buff from patch 8 because of Booming Blade by itself. This allows us to get 4 attacks per round. Let me know what you think of this build. I don't often go for Act 3 builds like most items from Act 3, but I've got to do it every now and again, I feel. Let me know what you would change about the build. If you want a different armor, because the armor is not fixed at all. There's a whole slew of armors you could probably pick. Perhaps you want Baldur's Giant Slayer instead, so you get the extra damage from the strength modifier, except that's a fixed number. When we get critical hits, it doesn't help out. That's the reason why I didn't use it. So, yep, thank you for watching. Thank you to all the members of my channel. You really do help out, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.